No one supports your dream. They smile at you, but they don't believe you. They say, "That's nice," but they don't take you seriously. Some of them laugh. Some of them doubt. Most of them just ignore you. And every night, you're building something nobody sees. Studying while others scroll. Training while others sleep. Planning while others party. You look around and think, why am I doing this alone? Here's the truth nobody tells you. If nobody supports you, good. Because Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Power doesn't begin with applause. It begins in isolation. The empire is never built with encouragement. It's built in silence, in doubt, in loneliness. And if you feel alone right now, you might be closer to power than you think. But to understand this, we must first understand the brutal truth about power. Let's remove the fantasy. Most people believe success looks like this: supportive friends, encouraging family, a strong network, people clapping while you climb. That's a comforting story. It's also rarely true. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable. Power isolates. The moment you start rising, something shifts. People don't just see your growth. They measure themselves against it. And comparison breeds envy. Envy doesn't clap for you. It questions you. It waits for you to fail. That's why leaders are often feared more than loved. Not because they want to be cruel, but because power changes dynamics. Support is conditional. People support you when you're small, when you're safe, when you're not a threat. But the moment your ambition becomes real, the room gets quieter. Think about it. The entrepreneur who quits a stable job, friends call it risky. The student who studies while others relax, they're told to live a little. The creator uploading videos with 12 views, family asks, is this even worth it? At every level of growth, there's a moment where you stand alone. History shows it. Rulers faced critical decisions without consensus. Commanders made calls knowing half their advisors disagreed. Movements were started by individuals before they became crowds. Because empire building requires unpopular decisions. And unpopular decisions reduce your circle. Here's the brutal truth. If everyone agrees with you, you're probably not building anything powerful. If nobody doubts you, you're probably not aiming high enough. So maybe your loneliness isn't proof you're failing. Maybe it's proof you're stepping into territory most people are too afraid to enter. So if power is lonely, how do you build when no one stands with you? Why lack of support is actually an advantage. Here's where everything flips. What if the very thing you think is holding you back is actually your unfair advantage? When no one expects anything from you, something powerful happens. You become free. No expectations means no pressure to perform for anyone. No pressure means you can experiment. You can fail quietly. You can improve privately. You can move without explaining yourself. Most people don't build for results. They build for validation. They post the gym selfie before the transformation. They announce the business before the profit. They talk about the exam before they've passed it. Why? Because support feels good. But Machiavelli understood something dangerous about human nature. When you depend on approval, you lose authority. Support can become a drug, and dependency weakens power. If you need applause to continue, you are controlled by the crowd. But when no one supports you, you are forced to build internal strength. Silence becomes your training ground. In silence, your excuses get louder. Your fears get clearer. Your weaknesses become visible. And that's uncomfortable. But it's also where mental strength is forged. Isolation forces you into a conversation with yourself. No distractions. No external praise. No emotional crutches. Just you and your standard. That's where self-reliance is born. Machiavelli believed a ruler must rely on his own arms, not borrowed power. Translated into modern life. Don't rely on borrowed motivation. Don't rely on borrowed confidence. Don't rely on borrowed belief. Build your own. When no one supports you, you stop performing. You stop trying to look impressive. You focus on becoming impressive. And that shift changes everything. Because when you build without applause, your foundation becomes solid. You're not moving because someone is watching. You're moving because you decided to. That is dangerous. That is stable. That is power. But here's the part nobody tells you. Building alone requires a different kind of mind. And most people never develop it. The Machiavellian mindset for building alone. Building alone is not about motivation. It's about mentality. And Machiavelli's philosophy wasn't soft. It wasn't romantic. It was strategic. If you're going to build an empire without support, you need a different operating system. Let's break it down. Principle 1. Be feared by your own weakness. Most people try to control others. Machiavelli would tell you to control yourself first. Your laziness, your distractions, your emotional impulses. When no one is watching, your discipline becomes your ruler. If you say you'll wake up at 5 a.m. and you don't, you lose authority over yourself. If you promise progress but choose comfort, you weaken your own kingdom. Power begins with self-command. Be stricter with yourself than the world ever could be. That's internal dominance. Principle 2. Control perception, especially when you're alone. Never appear desperate. Even if you have zero support, zero recognition, zero applause. Do not move with emotional hunger. Desperation leaks. It shows in how you talk, how you post, how you seek reassurance. Calm, strategic silence builds mystique. Think about the silent gym transformation. No announcements, no updates. 6 months later, undeniable results. That's perception control. You don't explain your grind. You reveal outcomes. Principle 3. Protect your vision. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. Small minds reduce big dreams to their own limitations. When you explain your empire too early, you invite doubt into something fragile. And doubt spreads fast. Sometimes silence isn't secrecy. It's protection. Let your results speak where your words once could have been attacked. Principle 4. Long-term strategy over short-term approval. Short-term approval feels good. Long-term dominance feels better. If your friends mock your discipline now, but 5 years later you're financially stable, physically strong, mentally sharp. Who really won? Machiavelli emphasized foresight. A ruler thinks in decades, not days. The exam you're studying for, the business you're slowly building, the skills you're developing quietly. They won't impress anyone today, but they will change your life tomorrow. Building alone means thinking beyond the room you're currently standing in. It means accepting that today's loneliness may be the price of tomorrow's authority. But let's not pretend this path is glamorous. Building alone is not poetic. It's brutal. And if you're not prepared for the dark side of isolation, it can break you before it builds you. The dark side of building without support. Let's be honest, building alone sounds powerful until you're actually living it. Because silence doesn't just build strength. It amplifies everything inside you. When no one supports you, doubt gets louder. You wake up some mornings and think, what if they're right? What if I'm wasting my time? What if this never works? And there's no one clapping to drown that voice out. Comparison becomes sharper too. You scroll and see people your age traveling, celebrating, progressing faster. And even if you know social media is curated, it still hits. You start questioning your pace, your progress, your decisions. Isolation, if unmanaged, can slowly turn into something darker. Not strength, but sadness. Not focus, but overthinking. Because when you're alone with your mind long enough, your mind can become your worst enemy. This is the part most grind videos never talk about. The nights where you feel invisible. The days where motivation disappears. The moments where you wish someone, anyone, would just say, I see you. Keep going. That craving for recognition is human. Machiavelli wasn't emotionless. He was realistic. And realistically, building alone requires emotional management. So how do you survive the dark side? First, structure. When your emotions are unstable, routine becomes your anchor. Wake up at the same time. Train at the same hour. Study on schedule. Routine protects you from emotional chaos. Second, micro wins. Don't measure progress in years. Measure it in daily victories. One completed workout. One finished chapter. One improved skill. Tiny proofs that you are moving. Third, self-trust practices. Keep promises to yourself. If you say you'll do something, do it. Every kept promise strengthens internal belief. Every broken one weakens authority. And finally, mentors through books. You may not have supporters physically, but you can borrow minds from history. Read thinkers who built under pressure. Study leaders who endured isolation. You're not as alone as you think, because thousands before you walked this path and survived it. Here's the truth. Building alone will test your mind before it rewards your effort. But if you can master the silence, if you can survive the doubt, if you can stay consistent when no one is watching, then you're not just building an empire, you're building resilience. So what does an empire really require? Not motivation, not applause. It requires structure, foresight, and self-command. Let's make this practical. Practical steps to build your empire alone. Now let's remove the philosophy for a moment. If you're building without support, you don't need inspiration. You need a system. Here's what that system looks like. 1. Build skill before status. Most people chase visibility. Smart people chase competence. If nobody supports you, perfect. You have time to become dangerous. Instead of asking, why don't they believe in me? Ask, am I undeniable yet? If you're 16, build skills. Coding, writing, fitness, communication. If you're 25, master your craft. Become irreplaceable at work. If you're 40, build assets. Knowledge, discipline, stability. Skill creates leverage. Leverage creates options. Options create power. Status without skill collapses. Skill without status eventually rises. 2. Create a personal code. When no one guides you, your values must. What do you stand for? Discipline, integrity, long-term thinking, emotional control? Write it down. A ruler without principles becomes reactive. A person without a code becomes influenced. When you're alone, your code becomes your counsel. It decides when you wake up. It decides how you respond to disrespect. It decides whether you quit or continue. 3. Remove emotional dependency. Stop waiting for encouragement. Stop hoping someone will validate your direction. Because if you only move when supported, you are not leading your life. You are outsourcing it. Encouragement is a bonus. It cannot be your fuel. Replace "do they believe in me" with "do I respect my effort?" That shift changes everything. 4. Master self-leadership. You are the general and the soldier. You wake yourself up. You push yourself. You correct yourself. And sometimes, you forgive yourself, but never excuse yourself. Self-leadership means no emotional negotiations. You don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" You ask, "Is it necessary?" That's maturity. That's authority. 5. Think 5 years ahead. Most people think in weekends. Machiavelli thought in decades. Ask yourself, where will this habit put me in 5 years? Where will this laziness put me in 5 years? Where will this discipline put me in 5 years? Team building skill now? You'll dominate later. Adult investing time wisely? You'll gain freedom. Older viewer thinking legacy? You'll build impact beyond yourself. Empires are not emotional decisions. They are strategic commitments. And when your empire finally rises, when the results become visible, something interesting happens. But by then, you won't be the same person who needed support in the first place. Remember how this started? No one supports your dream. That used to hurt. It felt like rejection, like isolation, like proof that maybe you weren't capable. But now look at it differently. What if the silence wasn't rejection? What if it was preparation? Because when you build without support, something changes inside you. You stop needing permission. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking your ambition to make others comfortable. And slowly, quietly, you become sovereign. One day, the results start showing. The body transforms. The money stabilizes. The confidence hardens. The discipline becomes visible. And suddenly, the same people who doubted you say, "I always knew you'd make it." But here's the twist. By then, you won't need them to say it. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped building for applause. You started building for self-respect. And that's the real empire. Not land. Not followers. Not attention. Self-mastery. The ability to wake up and command yourself. The ability to make hard decisions without emotional collapse. The ability to stand alone without feeling small. That's internal sovereignty. Machiavelli understood external power. But the deeper truth is this. External power without internal control collapses. Internal control without external recognition? That becomes unstoppable. When nobody supports you, you are forced to discover who you really are without validation. And that discovery is uncomfortable, but it is priceless. Because once you learn to stand alone, you are never desperate again. You never beg for approval. You never chase shallow validation. You never fear silence. You understand it. And that is where empires are born. Not in crowds, not in applause, but in quiet rooms, where a single person decides to become more than their circumstances. If you are building in silence, if you are working while nobody notices, if you are fighting battles privately, this channel is your council room. Not a place for noise, a place for strategy. Stay, build, rise.